When a huge amount of gas and dust combines and shrinks to become dense and hot, as you've just seen, the particles in the middle of the ball are so pressed together they start to fuse or join up, releasing an enormous amount of energy. This is called a nuclear fusion reaction. It's so powerful that when it starts, it throws off the outer layers of the ball and the rest is transformed into a star. That's what you just saw. A star is now shining steadily in the distance. It was a beautiful sight. Without the special sunglasses, they wouldn't have been able to see much because the star was so bright. George gazed at it, amazed by its power. Every now and then he could see huge jets of brightly shining gases sent hundreds of thousands of miles from the surface at extraordinary speeds. "And the star will keep on shining like this forever?" he asked. "Nothing is forever, George," said Eric. "If stars shone forever, we wouldn't be here. Inside their bellies, stars transform small particles into larger ones. That is what a nuclear fission reaction does. It fuses small particles together and builds big atoms out of small ones. The energy released by this fusion is enormous, and that's what makes the stars shine. Almost all the elements that you and I are made out of were built inside stars that exist long before the Earth. So you could say that we are all the children of stars. When they exploded a long time ago, these stars sent into outer space all these large atoms they created. The same will happen to you. The same will happen to the star you are looking at now. Behind the window, it will explode at the end of its life, when there are no more small particles available to fuse into bigger ones. The explosion will send into outer space all the large atoms the star created in its belly. On the other side of the window, the star was looking angry. Its bright yellow color was turning reddish as it grew and grew, until it was so big that it was almost impossible to see anything else through the window. It seemed to George that the star might explode at any moment. Eric pressed his remote control again, and the window immediately moved away from the star, which kept getting redder and bigger all the time. "Isn't it amazing?" exclaimed Eric. "At first the ball shrinks and gives birth to a star, and then the star gets bigger and bigger, and now it is about to explode. Whatever you do, don't take off your glasses." George watched the star in fascination. Suddenly, long after it had reached a size no one could have imagined, the most powerful explosion George had ever seen happened just in front of them. The whole star blew up, sending into outer space enormous quantities of light and red-hot gas, including all the new atoms it had created. After the explosion, George saw all that was left of the star was a beautiful new cloud, full of extraordinary colors and new materials. "Oh, wow," he said. It was like watching the most incredible fireworks display. "You see," said Eric, "with time, the colorful cloud you now see will mix with other clouds, ones from far distant stars that have also exploded. As they cool down, all the gases from these clouds will mix together into an even bigger cloud, where stars will be born again. Near where these new stars appear, the leftover elements will gather together to become objects of various sizes, but not ones big enough to become stars themselves. Some of these objects will become balls, and with time, these balls will turn into planets. In real life, it takes a very long time for all of this to happen, tens of millions of years." Wow, George was fascinated. "But we haven't got that much time to wait, and you need to get home for supper," said Eric, going over to Cosmos and pressing a few more keys. "So let me speed it up a bit. Here we go." In the blink of an eye, the tens of millions of years Eric was talking about had passed. The gas from the explosion of dozens of stars had gathered into an immense cloud. Within this cloud, new stars were appearing everywhere, until one formed just in front of the window. That star's brightness made all the other stars very difficult to spot. Some distance away from this new star, the gas left over from the cloud was becoming very cold and had started to gather into small, icy rocks. George saw that one of these rocks was headed straight for the window. He opened his mouth to warn Eric, but the rock was traveling far too quickly. Before George could say anything, it smashed into the glass and with a shattering, splintering roar seemed to shake the whole house. George jumped in front and fell off the sofa. "What was that?" he shouted to Eric. "Oops," said Eric. who was typing away on Cosmos. "Sorry about that. I wasn't expecting to take a direct hit." "You should be more careful," said Cosmos crossly. "This isn't the first time we've had an accident." "What was it?" asked George, who found he was clutching a small teddy bear that Annie must have left on the sofa. He was feeling rather dizzy. "We were hit by a tiny comet," admitted Eric.